There's no question that if you're a political scientist, you're going to choose your research topics that are guided by things you care about. I don't know a political scientist who doesn't care deeply about political outcomes. That said, your professional responsibility is to take the arguments where they take you and to be true to the data rather than to whatever political prejudices you might have approached your subject with in the first place. This year, for the first time, there are no men in the class. It's the first time it's happened in a while. Clearly, of course, a gender in politics is disproportionately likely to attract women students. In both places, it's disproportionately attractive to women, but it's not necessarily simply attracting the most feminist and most radical students by any means. What I've never had is anyone in my courses, male or female, at either institution, who is deeply opposed to the changes that have happened in the last half century in America in changing roles for women. In terms of what is the trajectory for equality of representation of men and women within American politics, we've seen a fair amount of movement in the last 40 years or so. It began, for example, with greater representation of women in the state legislatures, but for some reason, for the last 10 to 15 years, that's just leveled off, somewhere in the low 20s, and there hasn't been much change. There's been some continuing change in Congress. So now the proportion of women in the Senate is 20%, which is near the proportion in the state legislatures, and it never was. The proportion of women who are in city councils, in state legislatures, and even in the National Congress is higher than the proportion of women who are mayors, governors, and we've never had a president.